you didn't have the knockoff situations where once you get to that $4 or $5 million mark, seems like you have these kind of Chinese knockoffs flooding the market. So I guess how do you guys kind of square that?
Yeah. Well, thankfully, we have IP, we have, copyright, we have, we're doing takedowns on Amazon for patent infringement with the Apex program.
Yep.
I'm hoping that the silver lining of the tariffs is that a lot of these Chinese sellers that are always competing with us just go away.
No way.
They're always undercutting the brands. They don't necessarily use our brand name, but they figured out how to create a knockoff that doesn't use our images, and it hurts the American sellers. And
welcome to another episode of Everything Intellectual Property. Today, we have very special guests with us. This dynamic duo has created a rinsing device such that you will never have to rinse, clean, or bathe in a bucket again. Please help me welcome the founder of Rinseroo, as well as the COO of Rinseroo, Jake Lane and Lisa Lane. How is it going?
hi, Dave.
Helen.
Thanks for having us.
I'm excited, and I guess just to kind of clarify, again, correct me if I'm wrong. So it seems like, Mom, you founded the company, and then Jake, he's the COO, helps with the operations of the company. Is that correct?
Yeah, well,
Yep.
Okay.
yeah, I kind of came up with the idea, but honestly, it was the two of us working together that made it happen. Like, I was like, Jake, we need to do this. And he's like, how about this? So
Nice. So, and I always like to kind of start with I know this is a video and it has a video component as well, but to the extent that someone is watching it on just the audio, component, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcast, can you maybe explain kind of what it is that you all have invented as relates to the Rinseroo and the rinsing device?
yeah, I guess I could start. So basically, we live at the Jersey Shore in the summer, and there's a lot of us there. We have 4 dogs when we're all there. I was trying to bathe dogs, and I was trying to clean my shower walls. And with all those people coming in and out all day from the beach, we had sand, we had dogs. I was filling a bucket over and over to clean my shower walls and rinse the dogs. And I thought, it's messy, it's time consuming, there's got to be a better way. And I said to Jake, I'm like, if we could just come up with something that we could attach to the shower head and eliminate the bucket, we might actually be onto something. And that's where Rinseroo started. It was an aha moment in the shower, literally.
Yeah.
Wow. So then what's the next steps at that point for you? So you have this idea, and we were talking about offline how most people just kind of stop at that point in time. Oh, we have an idea. What if somebody hooked up something to the shower and next thing you know, they kind of go about their lives and nothing comes up from it. But what was that next step for you all to say, okay, let's kind of maybe start kind of testing out some things. Let's actually do this as opposed to just having an idea and not talking about a solution.
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, I had no idea. I had no manufacturing background at all. And I thought, how do I go from here? And I literally read a book. It was Lori Grenier's book. And I'm forgetting the title of it, but it was like how to tell if you have a hero or a zero. And the more I read the book, I was like, oh my God, I have a hero on my product. It's demonstrable. It's mass market. Anybody with a dog or a shower could potentially find a use for this thing. And once you realize you have that zero, I was like, I'm not stopping here. I said, Jake, let's come up with this. And he kind of figured it out. And
Well, yeah, I helped come up with the concept during the summer, like you said, down at the beach. But that was, I guess, the summer going into my senior year of college.
Okay.
So I went off to school, and then she did most of the grunt work in that aspect and coming up with the official prototype and tracking down a manufacturer. And then when it came time for me to graduate, she had already gotten the ball rolling on things, and I was graduating during COVID, so there weren't many job options out there. And then she ended up calling me, asking me to join the team, and the rest is history there.
Hold on. So I have kind of 2 questions with this, and this is why I love doing these, because it starts to get a little juicy here. So I guess you're saying that, do you think if maybe we weren't in that kind of COVID space and you went off and got a job, that you probably wouldn't kind of came on board?
I don't know. It's hard for me to say, because I went to school for risk management and insurance, so it's completely different
For sure.
ballpark there. But I mean, I can't even imagine doing that these days. I mean, I love what I do now. It's been very cool learning all this new stuff and experiencing everything we have. So I would
Well,
like to say I would have ended up doing this the whole time, but I don't know. Who's to say? It's hard to know.
and that's one of the cool things. And it's, we're talking about me doing these kind of Shark Tank, kind of reaction or breakdown videos, and it's entrepreneurship. I would say many years ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago, was like this taboo thing where it's like, okay, if nothing else worked out for whatever reason, then you just kind of became an entrepreneur. But to the extent that you can go to school and get a good, career or job, engineer, whatever the case may be, kind of do that. But then I look at these Shark Tank episodes, and Eric Tulip, which I actually supposed to interview him tomorrow. He was just on maybe one of the last episodes this season. He was an engineering major. I think did something in like aeronautical, and then next thing you know, he's an entrepreneur. So it's like you're seeing the reverse where people are kind of getting out of maybe corporate to kind of become an entrepreneur, create a product, create whatever service, and then kind of sell that to the world. So I don't know. I think that's interesting. And the great thing about it is, again, in your case, Jake, it's not like you have to have experience doing that particular thing. At least from a school perspective, you have to have experience doing that said thing that you're looking to be an entrepreneur in. It kind of runs the gamut. As long as you're willing to, I guess, kind of execute and I guess overcome adversity, then it seems like you're in a good space.
I
Yeah.
think Amazon kind of created that too. I mean, there's so many entrepreneurs. I think I read that there's like 1.1 million
Yep.
US-based sellers on Amazon. So why not? I mean, it's a great way to make a living if you get a really cool product and
Oh.
the world is your oyster.
No, for sure. And I would imagine most people, I don't know, Jake, you have mentioned it a little bit. Most people would much rather kind of be doing their own thing and making money and kind of living, a good life as opposed to maybe kind of being stuck in some kind of corporate office doing that thing. So that, I don't know, that's just kind of my take. It seems like maybe that's the case, Jake, if you had to, because it seemed like you went right from graduating to the business. You didn't necessarily get a chance to kind of even experience kind of corporate.
Yeah, no, definitely. This is all I've been doing. So I have no experience in the official corporate world. So it's been nice for sure. I have no complaints.
I think he interviewed for an internship once and they showed him a cubicle and he's like, oh
Yeah, that is true. It was a little bit of a bummer in there for sure.
Is this what? And that's interesting because I was doing an engineering intern at Ford Motor Company as I was finishing my undergrad at Michigan State, and I did one at the utility company called DTE here in Michigan. And I guess two things that got me. One thing is like, okay, people they were just so negative in a corporate environment, and it's like, man, you guys do this for 20, 30 years. This has to get exhausting.
I know. It was all gray and sad in there. It just I'm very fortunate, that's for sure.
No, that's cool. That's cool. So then I was talking to you guys offline. How is it with the family dynamic in terms of, because I personally kind of love these situations where, whether it's kind of the husband and a wife or mom and son, mom or daughter, vice versa, whatever the case may be, but with the family, get a chance to kind of work within a family business together. Obviously, I would imagine that is pros and cons of that. Can you guys talk a little bit about kind of that experience of being kind of mother, son and kind of working together?
Sure. You want to go on or me?
Yeah, well, I would say the great thing is that, we can work remotely if we want to, so we don't have to be next door to each other, bothering each other. But he did live at home for a little bit, and honestly, I loved it.
Yeah.
There's no greater thrill than having a business that you do with your kid. It really brought us closer. I mean, I see him every day. I love that. He has to say hello to mom. I just love it. And you know what? Like, he's great at things that I'm not good at. So we really make a great team. He's great with spreadsheets and numbers crunching. I'm more marketing. And he honestly, he cheers me up. Not every day is like great, especially now we have tariffs and we're like, stressed out. He helps me get through the rough times. It's really, really nice. So I don't know what he would say about me, but I have no.
No, I agree. I mean, we're fortunate. We get along very well. And I mean, yes, there will be times where we'll argue briefly, but then generally within 30 minutes after, like, I'm sorry. And then we get
I love you, mom. I love you too, Jake.
Exactly.
And I think Lisa, you have brought up a good point in terms of maybe it helping out kind of work remote. I know this past weekend was Easter and I was at home, and I don't get a chance to go home and kind of visit mom. She's getting older, but she still gets around really good and is a great cook. So always good to get a chance to get some of her cooking or whatnot. But then I kind of think to myself, and after a day or so, it's like, okay, let's get kind of back to work. I'm not sure if I had to kind of work with my mom in terms of being in that physical environment day in and day out. I don't know. Maybe that's a little tougher for me, but again, that's not to say I love my mom. It's just I don't know. I guess maybe space kind of creates that environment where you guys can miss each other. Maybe.
Definitely.
You might just be being nice because he's being recorded.
No, I mean it. I mean, yeah, I did just move down to Florida though, so.
Right. So yeah, you're looking at the sun shining on a beach all day, so it's nothing to complain about.
Yeah, I have no complaints. That's for sure.
So Lisa, you had talked about kind of the tariffs and even kind of going back and we get off into the Shark Tank experience here in a little bit. And I guess you guys brought it up on Shark Tank as well as far as kind of the knockoffs. It's almost like I just want to get your guys' take on this because on one end, obviously this affects businesses, whether you're small, medium, or large in terms of the tariffs. But on the other end, it just seems like, especially what I've seen from not only interviewing people, but on my own personal clients, whether it's startup or a Fortune 500 company, is kind of the knockoffs to the extent that you're selling things on Amazon. So I guess how do you guys make sense of that as far as is the tariffs maybe a good thing? Obviously, we have some kind of trade imbalances, it seems like, but it seems like especially all these kind of knockoffs are coming from China. I would imagine that entrepreneurship and IP and all these things will kind of be even more improved if kind of you didn't have the knockoff situations where once you get to that $4 or $5 million mark, seems like you have these kind of Chinese knockoffs flooding the market. So I guess how do you guys kind of square that?
Yeah. Well, thankfully, we have IP, we have, copyright, we have, we're doing takedowns on Amazon for patent infringement with the Apex program.
Yep.
I'm hoping that the silver lining of the tariffs is that a lot of these Chinese sellers that are always competing with us just go away. They're always undercutting the brands. They don't necessarily use our brand name, but they figured out how to create a knockoff that doesn't use our images, and it hurts the American sellers, and it's kind of not fair. But hopefully that's a silver lining. I don't know.
No, yeah, for sure. It seems like that's, man. I think again, just kind of play fair. That's the big thing. We're not asking you guys to do something that we're not kind of willing to do for ourselves. But when you can just kind of flood the market, like you said, with the knockoffs and there's no penalty. I mean, obviously you kind of get taken down, but even that's a process and costs you all as kind of the entrepreneurs more money to be able to kind of go through that process, that game of whack-a-mole. So it seems like if something can kind of come out of it where, everybody is playing fair, it's not flooded with the knockoffs. Yeah, I don't know. I just think that's, I guess, a win, at least in my opinion. So I guess maybe moving on to IP, was this something that you all knew about ahead of time? Obviously, you guys have the patent. We have Rinseroo, which is a trademark. We talked about the copyrights on the images and things like that. Was IP, because even a lot of Shark Tank guests where they're kind of, this was like a trial by fire as they're building a business and not knowing about IP and kind of making mistakes along the way, whether it's with attorneys or kind of just costly mistakes. Is this something that you guys knew about kind of prior to starting a business?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, one of my best friends from college, my freshman dorm floor roommate, not roommate, but she lived on my floor. She's my best friend. She's a patent attorney, and she's like, I'm like, honestly, like all the stars aligned. I had a great idea. I had a great patent attorney. I'm like, oh my God.
No, for sure.
And it's really, as you know, like if you're selling on Amazon, you have to have copyright. You can't even be your brand there. So started with that. And, as you know, the patent process takes a while. So she encouraged me, helped me. And it's been great, especially now with the knockoffs, to have that patent to be able to, hold your own. And honestly, if you plan to grow a brand, that patent in the end is what gives you value. It really does. Without it, I think your valuation is not nearly as valuable.
Jake, were you going to say something?
No, I mean, she like she said, the fact that she had her old college friend that was a great patent attorney is pretty remarkable. Worked out well for us, that's for sure.
I was going to say, man, that's how you draw it up. Just say, so if you guys, the audience, get nothing else from this interview, make sure when you're in college or whatever the case may be, you kind of latch on to an IP attorney, a patent attorney, because you never know when you're going to need them later down the line. I talked to a lot of people. I think Dr. Dave Smith, which he invented the Q collar. You may see him on other NFL athletes to kind of help reduce the likelihood of concussions. And he had talked about on a podcast, like, hey, if you don't have patents, then it's going to be tough to get investors and things like that. So just kind of having that IP, particularly patents, is going to help you out in a number of ways going forward, to the extent that you can get you can protect the invention.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then kind of maybe moving on to like the Shark Tank experience. How was that? Because I have rewatched your guys' episode, and it seems like the first year you all were in business. I mean, you guys were like the model business, which it gives everybody hope. At least hopefully that's the case where the first business, I mean, the first year, it seems like you guys did $1 million in revenue, and you got the golden ticket and no Red Lords, but everything kind of worked out. What was the point to say, okay, we need to go on Shark Tank? Because you guys were selling actually pretty good up until that point in time. Say we need to go on Shark Tank to really kind of blow this thing up.
Well, we tried out 3 times.
Mm.
You know, we had the casting people came. They said, you should apply. We applied. We're like, oh, we're going to get on. And then it's like, nope, didn't do it. And then finally this year, we're like, all right, third time is a charm. I'm like, if I don't do it this year, it's not going to happen. But it's always been a goal.
Yeah, I do remember because we had filmed multiple tryout videos. The last one that we did, I remember I got the phone call from her and I was kind of like, I was like, all right, we'll give it one more shot because it is tedious. It's a lot of work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm very happy that we did.
And this is probably the first time, because like you said, a lot of times it kind of runs the gamut in terms of how the person gets on the show. Sometimes the producers reach out to people or see them at trade shows, or like you said, you all maybe kind of, or someone maybe apply. This is the first time I think I've ever heard where the producer or someone within the Shark Tank realm say, hey, apply, then that person or that business doesn't get on the first time. It seems like that's almost like a shoe-in.
You would think,
That's
but
what we-
no.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Apparently, there's a lot of people that make that first round where you do the video pitch. You get like a 5-minute video and you pitch. And I was like, oh, we're in. And it's like, oh, no. Oh, well.
Yes, there's
Don't
multiple
ever give up.
cuts. Yeah,
Yeah.
multiple cuts. So you can make it pretty far and put in a lot of work and still not quite make it to the show. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah, and it seems like just kind of what I've learned by obviously watching Shark Tank and kind of doing these interviews is you can kind of even kind of make it in front of the sharks in that episode, not get it aired, from my understanding. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I think what percentage did we were trying to figure out the calculation, because obviously after you film, you're like, you don't know until they give you a little heads up. But we did the calculation. A very high percentage can go film and still not be on the show.
Do you know if, and this is kind of interesting as I'm kind of thinking it out in real time, do you know if those people who, even though they film and don't make it, does that episode, like what happens to that episode? Do they still get a chance to reapply, or is it kind of just lost in the archives? Do you know what kind of happens at that point?
I'm sure you can reapply, but I think it's just deleted. It's wiped and you just got to try again.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, when you actually go to film, they, the senior producers will be like, all right, guys, give it your best. Here's your one chance. And you're like, crap, But he's like, inevitably, like one pitch a day is just kind of boring. He's like, do not be that boring pitched because you won't air.
Yeah.
So that was like, all right, what are we going to do to make this interesting? We have a shower hose here. It's like,
talk about a motivational speech.
Yeah, no kidding.
So then you guys make it, you guys get the phone call, and then you're walking through the doors that we've seen many people walk through so many times. Some are successful, you get a deal, and some are not. How was that day of? Was it like nervous? I mean, obviously, I would imagine that you guys were nervous, but did you guys think like, okay, we know our lines, we kind of know our numbers, so we're ready for this?
Well, so we had practiced, because since we're both in different locations, when we found out that we were going to be on, we would meet every morning. I think like twice a day. We would run through this 5 times in the morning, 5 times in the afternoon for, at least a couple months. Like we had done it hundreds of times. Went out to California. We were practicing. We know it all. We practice all the potential questions they could ask us. And then they brought us into the little studio area, right, with nobody in there. Generally, they won't let you do a practice round, but since we had water in ours, they wanted to make sure everything was working well.
Okay.
So we went in there, and they were like, okay, guys, run through it real quick. Let's see how you do. And we start the pitch, and she completely forgot every single one of her lines. Like
hundreds of practices.
She knew every 5 minutes before this, she knew it perfectly. We knew everything. And then she completely 3 times in a row could not remember okay, try again, Lisa. She was
3 times. Finally.
Yeah. Well, everything was like switched around. They're like, yeah, here's the set, do this. I'm like, well, instead of grabbing this from here, get this from there and do this from here. I'm like, oh my God. And I was like, I just had a brain freeze. I was just, And then one of our producers is like, all right, Jake, you got this. If your mom forgets her lines, you're good. He's like, no, I don't know her lines.
Well, initially I did, but at that point I was like, okay, I just got to focus on what I need to do. So he's like, Jake, if she messes up, you're just going to have to remind her. And I was like, I deleted her lines from my brain to make space for mine. And then I would ask her, I was like, okay, Mom, I was like, let's run through it real quick. Like while we're standing behind the doors, I'm like, let's practice one more time. I was like, all right, go. And she would look at me and just go, yeah, and just wouldn't say anything.
Really? So was it a successful run through prior to going out at that point, or
we had horrible run through, but when we're lined up at that door, they count down from 7. I'm like, all right, we're do or die. And you only get one shot to do your pitch. It's not like they turn the camera off and you redo it. It's like one or done.
Yeah.
And somehow we got in there and, you stand there for a full minute and stare at the sharks. You can't talk, right? And you just stare at them for a minute while the cameras get all set up. And while I stood there, I got my composure. I remembered my first line and I'm like, you got this. And I was able to do it somehow, but it was very close to being a complete.
I wasn't nervous, honestly, until she forgot everything because I had no idea how it was about to go.
It's a little bit.
Yeah. So it seems like, because again, I always wonder whether or not having like the partner or whatnot with you, if that helps out. It seems like that maybe played dividends for you all, because it seems like that, Mom, you're up kind of alone. It seems like it could have been a toss up at that point.
Absolutely. I think it definitely helps to be doing it with somebody. You kind of have a little support system there that can back you up, and just even to be able to, like I said, we're at the hotel. We could ask each other questions. We could go back and forth with the pitch. So, I mean, the odds of both of you forgetting is probably pretty low. So it definitely took a little pressure off.
Yeah, but if you watch old Shark Tank videos back, there's some definite fumbles in there. There's people, they film your hands being jittery. It's like whatever they do wrong is what they focus on. I did not want to be that person.
Right. And this was a couple seasons ago. Turbo Trusser, they essentially make it it's like a metal plate, but it helps you truss turkeys and chickens. And they actually wore like a chicken in a turkey costume, and they were talking about how they were like sweating profusely during the pitch. And I guess one of the sharks kind of like, hey, let's break a pause. Somebody get these guys some towels, because they're like just kind of sweating out of their mind.
I
thought that was interesting, because they actually kind of pressed pause, or I guess kind of held up for them to kind of wipe themselves off because they were sweating. But like you said, you're right. Outside of that, you typically don't hear stories of them kind of doing a redo or, because of the blips. It's almost like you guys have to kind of work your way through it at that point.
Yeah, I thought the hardest part was the pitch, not the answers and the questions.
Really?
Because it's like, we're not actors. Like, you have to memorize that 90-second pitch. And I was like, questions were easy, but the pitch is tough.
It's easy to spit out facts about the business because that's what we do every single day. But going up there and her spraying me with a hose, and that's definitely not my wheelhouse. I am not a big public speaker at all. I'm generally pretty shy, so that was definitely out of my comfort zone. But it worked.
Well, you two look like naturals up there, if I had to be honest with you. And I guess as I was watching, it's like, okay, I understand the general premise of it, and like, okay, and then you hear the sales. Did you guys think like the sales were like the trump card or the gold card in the pocket to say, okay, we're going to blow them away when we tell them the sales? Because I guess maybe up until that point, it was like, they're still trying to fill out the business. And then at least the way they edited things, once you guys kind of hit it with the sales, they was like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the sales speak for themselves. And also, I mean, they were interested in our valuation that we gave, because I feel like people generally give a very even number at like a 50s or zeros. So if you calculate it perfectly and you're confident in the numbers you're saying, I think they're impressed by that as well. But some people go up there and they throw stuff out and it doesn't necessarily calculate.
Yep. And that's very interesting you said that, because I typically, to get through a lot of content these days, and I'm not sure if it's good or bad or adding to my ADHD or ADD in the future, but I watch these videos on 2X, and if somebody has a like a accent, I'll watch it on 1.5. But I was again rewatching yours, and I had to like go back like 3. I'm trying to understand it in 2X, but you said 343, and I'm like, did he say 343? That seems like such a
it's such an eye number. Yeah.
Huh? No, you
Well,
know.
it's credible, you know, when you're like, "Hey, I calculated the number and this is exactly what it was." Like, I'm like, "Don't challenge us because this is right."
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. Is yeah,
That was the
someone
idea.
that kind of talked about that. How if you give them like an exact number, then that just kind of lends to the credibility of the valuation or kind of what it is that you're kind of calculating, as opposed to just giving 300,000 for 5% or two, like just round numbers, which is kind of can be seen a lot of times as pie in the sky. I guess I was kind of more so like 343 for 5%. Is that like 6.8 million, almost $7 million? It was like, okay, I know they have some sales.
Yeah.
Because typically, seems like as time goes on, the numbers get kind of more outrageous, which I'm not sure if that helps or hurts. Sometimes somebody will say 500,000 for 5%, and then they don't have any sales, and it's like, come on, you just kind of lost all credibility at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is you can't ask for a higher amount than they offer. They can't offer you a lower amount. So I was like, let's go lower, and then you have more room to negotiate up.
Yep. Yep. Oh yeah, that's absolutely true. So then, as you guys were kind of seems like turned into a bidding war, and typically, do you guys? Typically, it's like, okay, we want this shark, or maybe one or two sharks that you have identified beforehand. Because I know you guys don't get a lot of time ahead of time or before the pitch of knowing who's going to be on that panel for that
Mhm.
particular pitch. Did you guys maybe have lawyers one of the people that you identified to say, okay, we want to do a deal with her, or I mean, obviously you get the golden ticket, and it's like, okay, bets off regardless of whether or not we're going to go with her or not. She's our person. But did you guys identify her maybe ahead of time or?
Yeah. I don't even think we had a top 3 or top 2. It was pretty much Lori
Oh, really?
we wanted. Yeah. I think she just matches our style of product. Like she knows the QVC, the as seen on TV, demonstrable products and things like that. So she was our number one. Really I'm sure we would have gone with somebody else, but we went in there thinking we're getting Lori for sure.
For sure. Hey, and mom bought the book, so it seems like it was a lawyer or not. And then I even thought that when you kind of say that,
Well, for sure.
you bought the book.
Lori ate up the book. She ate up the fact that we had her book.
Hey, look, I almost bought the book after that. I said, let me go check out this book.
Honestly, like I feel like, yeah, Lori, she probably made a great. We sold a lot of Rinseroos, but she probably sold a crap ton of books after the hit.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely would guess that, man. It just seems like that episode, it just worked, or your guys' pitch worked so perfect. Everything went perfect, I should say, but it's interesting knowing all the chaos leading up to it.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
That's crazy. So then get a deal with Lori. Everything is good. So I always like to maybe ask the guests this, and this is almost like a two-part question, just because we all know, and maybe for your guys' business, because it seems like everything has, for the most part, going pretty well. I know it can be like a sine wave where you have the ups and the downs, and kind of maybe, I don't know, obviously we all are dealing with the tariffs at this point. But what is one of like the biggest breakthroughs that you guys had with the business up until this point in time? And then on the flip side of it, what was like the biggest challenge that you guys had to kind of overcome with the business?
A breakthrough is, I think, just that, you get that Shark Tank credibility. Once you've been on Shark Tank, it's just, it kind of gives that extra level. Like there's the Shark Tank effect.
Yep.
And I just think it opens so many doors. Just the fact that, you've been on Shark Tank. And Jake, you could speak to the challenges, maybe the tariffs and.
Yeah, I mean, the tariffs that we've been fortunate not to have too many very significant challenges up until this point. But this one with the tariffs, I mean, our product costs increased by 145%. We went from a $4 roughly landed cost. We're up over $9 now, which I mean, if there's certain products that it wouldn't affect so much but the nature of our product, we can only increase our price so much.
Yep.
Obviously I love our product. We believe in it, but there's a certain price point where I have to look at it and be like, would I spend $40 on that? I'm like, I don't know. So it doesn't feel right, but dealing with this, we're coming up with plans. Obviously we're going to have to cut costs in certain places. We're fortunate to have a lot of inventory land right before the tariffs hit. So we're in a good position where we can kind of ride things out before we have to do anything drastic. Our manufacturer has been talking about potentially moving locations, which I don't think we're going to do. We're going to try to hold out. I mean, all this stuff is happening so suddenly and without any rhyme or reason. It feels like the numbers jumping every day. But just this morning, there was an update that I think Trump was saying that they're in talks about bringing it down. He said it won't be zero, which obviously we would never expect it to be, but
Yep.
as long as it's not 145%, I'll be happy. That's for sure.
No, right, exactly. And so I guess this is interesting. So do you guys think, or at least consider, maybe, and again, maybe I know things when you try to manufacture in the US, it just kind of really doesn't make sense to even entertain it outside of kind of that maybe initial call. Is that something that maybe you guys considered, or was it kind of quickly dismissed based on kind of the cost?
Well, go ahead, Jake.
Well, I mean, obviously we had to consider it because with all this going on, it's expensive to move. We're so established with where we are in China right now. We have all of our molds for manufacturing is there. We have probably at least a couple $100,000 worth of product over there, and that's been paid for. That's just like a 30% deposit. We have so much stuff there. So to even consider building a new factory over there, moving over there, what are these other countries like? I mean, you can't beat the work ethic in China, the amount of stuff they can pump out, the capacity of their ports. They ship it here quickly, they get it out quickly. And if we move to another country, which realistically a lot of other companies are probably doing, their ports aren't as big. How are they going to be able to handle this new manufacturing capacity? Will we be able to get our product on the boats? How long is it going to take to get there? There's just so many unanswered questions.
For sure.
And the US, we did go to a couple years ago, a local manufacturing, not a seminar, but like a trade show.
Okay.
And the cost of goods would have been like 10 times what we pay in Asia.
Really?
Yeah.
So it seems like based on the tariffs, it's still cheaper in China.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And, and the other thing is that people don't realize is, are there people willing to work in these factories doing these menial tasks all day? People here don't want to do it. People don't even want to work at Amazon, never mind on an assembly line making rinseroos. Like, good luck getting employees. They'd be leaving.
Yeah.
Which is an option.
And that's a great point. I mean, heck, people don't want to work at all. See, you're scheduled for an 8-hour day. It's like,
young people, their dream job is to be an influencer now.
Right,
So
right.
They're not going to be building a Rinseroo. There's no way.
But I would imagine that if you have an 8-hour day, most people are only working 3 to 4 hours tops.
Yeah.
They're kind of like just kind of doing whatever the other 4 hours. So to say that, to get to your point, just on the assembly line cranking out Rinseroos or any product for that matter for 8 hours, it's like, screw this. I've got to take my chances at doing something else.
Yeah. I'll tell you, we one time back in the beginning, we had some improperly assembled units and we had to unpack them and redo them all. I'll tell you, that was the worst. 8 hours felt like a weekend. It was like, are you kidding? I'm 1 hour in. I'm like, I can't wait to stop doing this. It is not.
Taking them out of the boxes, attaching new hoses, putting new spouts, putting them back in the box.
You'd rather be like, have a drill drilled through your head. It's like,
she had my dad doing it, and his he was twisting so many hoses on. His elbow is still screwed. He's a brace for it now.
It's awful. You don't want to do it.
Oh man, so again, I think these are great points because I know a lot of people talk about, and I would imagine that some manufacturing jobs make sense to kind of come over here, especially when you're talking about the auto assembly lines and things like that. But these tedious jobs where you're at the assembly line just kind of doing these kind of tasks, where it's like even like maybe manufacturing iPhones or kind of going through that process, maybe that's not something that we care to do here in the US. I guess we're
not used to it.
Right, exactly. And especially when it's coming up with, like you said, the influencer age or whatever the case may be. I would imagine that the young people coming up are not going to be interested in doing that. So no, yeah, that's cool. So then I guess I always like to ask from an entrepreneurial standpoint, an aspiration standpoint. I know we talked about, again, offline as well as online with the ideals and kind of most people maybe not executing. To the extent that you have like aspiring entrepreneur who may be watching this and they have this kind of ideal, or maybe they even have maybe a product on the shelf that they have shelved for a number of years for whatever reason. What advice would you guys give to them to say, okay, maybe kind of go in or maybe not go in at that point? What advice would you give to the aspiring entrepreneurs that may be watching?
Well, I again go back to Lori's book. Like, we're so lucky. There's so much available online and in books. Go in with like a realistic expectation and say, hey, like, does this product check all those boxes? No. Is my margin going to be good enough? What is it going to sell for? How many might I be able to sell? Like, how big is the market? If you have, a horseshoe, how many people own horses, or you know what I mean? But it's just so easy to evaluate that. And if you read that, you figure it out, you're like, you know what, this makes sense, then go for it. I mean, I think it's sad that there are, what was the thing you said? Like, where can you find all these inventors? Most of them never in the graveyard. Although there was a graveyard. There's so many great ideas. People think, oh, someone else already did this. And maybe they didn't. Get an IP attorney to do a search to see if there's something that exists already,
No, yeah, for sure. Let me see if I have it on here. This is one of my clients here with Snapslide, who I interviewed like last year, but he has essentially this pill bottle, and you typically have the turn and twist pill bottles, and he came along gentleman, he's from Jersey as well, and
there you go.
I'm not sure what he did as a day job, but it was definitely not anything to do with inventor and whatever the case may be. He comes through and he has this kind of bottle that you can use one hand and open it, and it just seemed overly simplified. And I think he actually went to a first attorney, and he was like, "There's no way you're going to be able to get a patent on that." And maybe he went to another guy, and they said, "Hey, man, this is based on them doing a search. Like, it's something here." So yeah, just because somebody tell you or you think that it's too simple, you're not going to be able to protect it and kind of make a business out of it. Hey, still go through the process, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've always said too, sometimes the simplest ideas make the greatest problem solvers. Exactly. And that's exactly what Rinseroo is. I mean, it's a hose with a connector. It's so simple, but such a problem solver. If you have a problem solver, I would say go for it, because people will want a problem solver, something that saves them time and mess and money. Can't go wrong.
No, I completely agree with that. I was going to ask you guys, what is the craziest thing somebody uses for? I think I saw where somebody's kind of washing up their baby with it. And what from your guys is that you guys had a personal story told to you as far as somebody using Rinseroo for a particular thing that you're like, wow, that's crazy.
Jake, do you have an idea? I know mine.
One time I had somebody that reached out to me and they placed an order for Rinseroo, and we sell these 2.5 foot extension hoses.
Yep.
And they're like, can I order 20 of those? And I was like, yeah, I'll ship them to you if you want them. I was like, what are you trying to do? And he's like, I'm going to build a hose. And he attached it to his kitchen sink in a second floor apartment to get the hot water from the sink out the window and outside to fill up a baby pool with warm water.
Really?
Yeah.
That's one. And mine is someone was using it as a beer bong.
I can see that.
They put a beer in it, and it's got the hose, and they were beer bonging with it. I'm like, hey, maybe that's a market. We got to go to college campuses around the world. I don't know.
I was going to say, this seems like a college student who came up with that idea.
Yeah. Sure. But it is cool. People do reach out to us a lot, and they tell us all these crazy ways they're using it. And honestly, I'm thrilled to find that people are getting so many uses out of it. One woman said that, her husband had a stroke and he had like hemorrhoids or something. And they traveled to different hotels, and she's like, he needs to rinse his butt or whatever, not to be gross, or she was rinsing him because he had a stroke. And she's like, I travel with it. I attach it to here.
Wow.
And it's kind of like funny, but it's not funny. It's really helpful sometimes for people, elderly people that can bathe with it, sit in the shower. They don't want to swap out their plumbing, so stuff like that.
And I was going to say, that's kind of the great thing about just kind of coming up with something is, like I said, you all kind of use it maybe for the dogs and kind of rinsing out the shower, but being able to kind of see the different use scenarios that you would have never thought of, but for kind of coming out with the product and selling it. And hey, people getting creative and saying I can use it for this or that, and you would have like, yeah, I would have probably never used it for that, but hey, to each his own.
Exactly.
And then I guess the last question, and maybe the most important question, how can people follow you all as well as purchase the product?
I believe our Instagram is official Rinseroo. And then we have our own website, obviously rinseroo.com with all of our products. And then we're all over Amazon as well.
And TikTok is
TikTok shop. Yeah. Walmart.com.
Lowe's, Chewy.
Yep.
Okay, so you are not just on e-commerce platforms, but you guys seem like have made it into some retail as well.
No, we're .coms.
Oh,
Yeah.
.com. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any plans with going into retail, or maybe just the e-commerce platforms are pretty good for now?
We'll see what happens after the tariffs go away. It's a game changer. Like right now, things are on hold until that changes, but certainly I think our products, could sell very well in, the Lowe's, the Home Depots, the Targets of the world. And, it's a bestseller on Amazon. Why not sell it at retail? That's where 60% of all things like this are sold: mops, brooms, things like that.
I was going to say, yeah, whether it's the home goods stores, the Lowe's, like you said, Home Depot, I can see this thing killing in those type environments.
That's the goal. Yep. One step at a time.
One step at a time. Nice. It seems like you guys are going to be around for a long time. Hopefully we get these tariffs and things worked out, but seems like there's definitely many needs for the product. So, and you guys aren't going anywhere, which is good to see and hear. So hopefully, audience, you guys had your pens and your papers out. Hey, the dynamic duo, they gave a lot of great advice, a lot of good jewels. And hey, these is one of the good reasons why I love these interviews, just because you get some of the behind the scenes stuff that, particularly with the Shark Tank businesses, that you didn't see or would have never thought on the just from watching the show. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. And until next time, take care.